All right, so before we do any presentation at Royal Roads, we always acknowledge that Royal Roads University is situated on the traditional lands of the Kosepsum and the Kwangan ancestors and families. And learning has actually been happening here for countless generations, and we feel so grateful to be on this land as guests. And while I'm acknowledging things, I also want to acknowledge a few other things that are going on in the world. For one, of course, we're in month 4 of this global health crisis with added complexity of all the social and economic issues that are building right now. And we recognize that people have experienced a variety of different ways. We of course recognize the tourism industry has really experienced this acutely. So we're here to talk about the way forward, to support the vision for what's to come. And if you have any questions, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to discuss today. And I also want to acknowledge that many of us at Royal Roads are working from home. And so we're all coming through our individual internet connections. So there may be some added complexity for our AV. So if you are having any issues, just let us know and we'll support you in that. And we are here to discuss the Master of Arts and Graduate Certificate in Tourism Management. So I am joined by Dr. Eugene Thomlinson. Welcome, Eugene.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Jeffrey Bird.
Hello,
Welcome,
everyone.
Jeff.
Glad to be here. I can't see the actual PowerPoint. Can everyone else see it?
Yes.
I can.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I am also joined by a few other people that you can't see. So I have Christy Jones, who is my colleague, who's going to be supporting the back end. So if any technology issues come up, she's your gal. We also have now Fujiwara, who is our international enrollment advisor. So if you have any questions about coming in as an international student, she'll be watching out for those questions in the chat box. And Tracy Summers, who is our domestic enrollment advisor. So she'll also be adding helpful links and answering questions in the chat box as well. And I'm Lana McConaughey. I am an education advisor. I am also a graduate from Royal Roads and a current student. So I am well versed in all things Royal Roads, which I will be speaking to in a moment. But now that you know who we are, we'd love to get a sense of who's in the room with us. So if you feel comfortable just typing in where you're watching in from, perhaps what type of work you're into, just anything you want to share, we'd love to hear from you. And as you type, I'll let you know what we're going to be up to over the next hour. So I'm going to take you through a really brief overview of the Royal Roads experience, and then we're going to dive into a discussion with Eugene and Geoff around the future of tourism. And then we'll be going through the program information, and we'll wrap up with the application process and requirements. And as I mentioned, questions will be encouraged while they're having the discussion, but when we're going through the program information, we're going to hold off until the end, and then we'll answer all your questions, but do type them in as they come up. All right, so I see I have Janelle here from Vancouver-based tour guide and applied for the GC in tourism management. So welcome, Janelle. I also see someone whose name I can't quite see is joining from Victoria. We have Mohit from India, and we have Faiz. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, joining from India as well. I have Avit from India as well. Great, so keep on typing. We'll be keeping an eye out for your who's coming in. And I will let you know what Royal Roads is all about. So you might already be aware of this, but Royal Roads was created 25 years ago with a government mandate to create a public university with a different type of intention behind it. So it was really about serving professionals who are wanting to build on their skill set. So we have a variety of different delivery models that we'll be going through today that speak to that. So shorter condensed master's programs on campus, as well as online programs that allow people to work as they go through the program, and is really based on getting skills that they can take into their career and have real change in the world with their career. So there's a number of things that we do differently because of that. For one, we go on a first name basis. So you get to know your professors very well, they get to know you. You are entering a reciprocal learning environment where everybody is building on the body of knowledge together. Everybody is coming in with their own experience and background, and we really honor that, and we want to know who you are. And the thing I always like to mention about this is the fact that I'm on degree number 2 and I have no idea what my student number is. And I think that in itself is so unique. Most of the time when we're moving through our post-secondary, we are known by our student number. We can recite it like 20 years later. So that in itself, I think, really speaks to that personalized element that we offer our students. And that also leads me to the cohort model that we work with. So with most of our programs, we have a cohort model. There's a lot of intentionality around creating a learning community. There's team projects that come up in many of the courses. So learning how to work together and be able to do something greater in your teams than you would individually. And just recognizing that working in teams and being able to collaborate is one of the non-essential technical skill, or sorry, the essential non-technical skills to be successful in your work. So we really spend a lot of time working on that, and also recognizing that the relationships that are built are really valuable as well and can lead to great friendships as well as job possibilities. And life is also an education refers to the fact that we recognize that people learn in a variety of different ways, and sometimes that's outside of in education institutions. So our flexible admissions model is about that. So I'll be going through that in a little bit more detail, but basically this is where we'll assess you holistically on coming into the program. So you might be somebody who maybe did a diploma a number of years ago, and then you've been working in the tourism industry or in a related industry for a number of years, and you feel like you want to bring your education to the next level, but you feel like going back to do your undergrad is maybe not where you want to go back to. You feel like you're ready for a master's, so we will actually look at you holistically, and you may be led into the program based on your work experience. And our real-world classroom. So all of our faculty are very experienced in the area that they teach. So all of the folks that work in the School of Tourism and Hospitality not only have education to teach at this level, but they also have worked in the tourism industry. So they know what's going on. Many of them are still working in the tourism industry, so they're ensuring that everything you're doing in terms of your readings and your assignments are relevant and based on current trends. And with that, we are an Ashoka Changemaker campus. So this is a designation we're very proud of, and this basically means that we are committed to bringing our learning outside of the classroom. And I have to say, with the MA in Tourism Management, this is something that I'm just so pleased about the students that come out of this program and the change that they actually are making. And I know you guys will probably talk about it, but Kathy McRae, who did her project on ending the grizzly bear hunt, who actually was able to use that research to change legislation, to Jason Alsap, who helped the Haida Nation, or his research supported the Haida Nation, working with Parks Canada to take over stewardship authority of Guayhanas. There's just so many examples of people who have had such dramatic change through this degree. So I'm sure they'll be talking about that a bit more, but I'm always excited to share those. And in terms of the physical place, so we haven't seen this place in a few months, but we know it still exists. So we are not only a public university, we are also a National Historic Site. So Hatley Castle is not as old as you might think. It was built in the early 1900s, but a very elaborate historical building. And Esquimalt Lagoon is actually the view from the back of the castle, and it feeds into the ocean. So we're actually quite close to the beach as well. So lots of places to explore around there. We're actually on 565 acres of old growth forest as well. So lots of forest to explore. And the Sherman Gen building is where the School of Tourism and Hospitality is located. It's a beautiful new building. It was built, or it was opened in 2019, is that correct? Is when you guys moved in? Was that early 2019?
Something like that, yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys were here from before we started, but we were talking about this. It actually was the stables back when the castle was first constructed. And so they've used the framework of the stables to create this very modern building. And as you can see, it's very beautiful. And we have been delivering online learning for 25 years. So this is something that we didn't know would be as relevant and important as it is, but it is right now. We've been able to pivot very easily to our on-campus programs, and as well as our on-campus residencies and our blended programs being delivered fully online to keep everyone safe. And with that, we're going to dive right into the discussion. So I'll let you guys take over.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alana. One of the reasons why Geoff and I wanted to have these questions right at the front was to basically, address the elephant in the room. As Alana mentioned, tourism and hospitality sector has been one of the most hit by the whole COVID crisis and things like that. And so we wanted to talk about that right from the start and just put it out there about a little bit about our perspectives on things. And also, as Alana mentioned, if people have questions about, to put that into the questionnaire or the chat box if you have any questions about from our perspective of where we see tourism and hospitality. So did you want to start, Geoff, and just say a few words about things?
Sure. Thanks, Eugene. As everyone knows, it's been an incredible ride for tourism over the past several months. And at Royal Roads, what we did was we mobilized our associate faculty who are in industry. They're general managers. They're running industry associations. They have many of them have their own businesses or in management positions. And so collectively, we came together and we created a thing called the Tourism and Hospitality Resource Forum for the industry, basically to discuss issues about recovery and the future. And so we've basically provided a series of resources for the industry here in the province as we've evolved to the recovery phase. And so in that way, it's been great for students to engage in that conversation and to see how industry is thinking about the road ahead. And of course, there's two elements to that. One is we need to get business happening again. And then the other one was, is there a new form of tourism that we can look to in the future? And certainly there is an issue of addressing things like fear of traveling. There's an issue of social license where we're trying to build the confidence of communities to accept travelers in, particularly small communities. And we see this around the world. And so these are, this pandemic has been an event that has basically brought into focus sustainability in a greater way, issues of sustainability and resilience. Do you want to add to that, Eugene?
Sure. Well, and I guess to kind of touch on a couple of things and on about in the news that we've noticed, for example, up in what used to be called the Queen Charlotte Islands or Guianas, they are currently facing that sort of question of social license and whether or not the community wants to have tourists coming back in. We've seen that sort of thing also in some of the tourism hotspots around the province and around the world. It's kind of been that it was an interesting, I saw some notes from Australia coming out, and the way that they described the industry right now is that it's kind of in hibernation. And I thought that was kind of a nice way of describing it because, things have kind of calmed down, quietened out, but we know that it's going to come back. We've seen in every other incident in the past, 9/11, the global financial crisis, SARS, everything like that, that tourism and hospitality comes back and quite often comes back very quickly. So it's a matter of us right now taking this moment and seeing what sort of tourism and hospitality do we want when things do come back. A lot of people around the world, a lot of professionals, academic and otherwise, are using this opportunity to really think about, okay, what is the tourism that we want? And as Geoff mentioned, communities taking that step back and going, okay, we've been relying on tourism for so long. What is the tourism that we want? But there's been a lot of positives and negatives coming out of COVID. On the positive side, for some communities, that sort of reduction in tourism and hospitality, but they've also noticed that, for example, poaching going up in some areas that had been protected by this flow of tourists and everybody coming through. If you don't have the tourists around, the poachers can move in. So, kind of now is that opportunity to really reconnect and see what's going on. The other thing that we talk about sometimes in especially in academics, is that the research that we've done in the past, pre-COVID, may not be entirely valid or as applicable post-COVID. So that there will be a need for a lot more research done on, what's going to happen on the other side. How do we do it? How do we approach? What's the best way to bring everything back?
Mm-hmm.
So
those are really good points, Eugene. I mean, there's so many different elements to consider when we think about what's ahead. And I mean, generally, what I think we're seeing is, particularly for small businesses, which make up the majority of tourism and hospitality enterprises around the world. We're seeing this challenge where people are going to try to figure out how they can recover over the next coming years. And some will have time to do that as the industry returns. Others may just say, you know what, I've had a good run and it's time for me to step out of the industry. So I think what we're expecting to see is keeping in mind that the passion for travel hasn't in any way decreased. People, I think, the world over, I think there's this potential, huge potential that's being, held up, that I think we will see this big bounce back. But in terms of the businesses, I think we're going to see a bunch of gaps left, as we'll see this period where businesses just can't make it in the short term, or people have decided to retire or move on. And those gaps represent opportunities for either existing organizations to move into, or for new entrepreneurs to step into. So, tourism is, while being at this one time susceptible to these kinds of things, like 9/11, September 11th, 2001, there was that sudden drop in tourism. And tourism is susceptible to that. But it also has this amazing ability to adapt and to bounce back. And so I think that's what we're expecting. So, I mean, it does allow us to go into the next question of why study now. Do you want to start with that one, Eugene?
Sure. It's, I guess there's several different elements to that as well. The nice thing about coming into, for example, a school like School of Tourism and Hospitality Management here at Royal Roads is that we've got that bit of perspective on what has happened in the past. What are some of the techniques, tools, methods that have been used in previous events, previous crises, things like that, and how has the industry adapted to it, things like that. It's also, for some people, during this, I guess, a bit of a hibernation, that some people will have that opportunity and that desire to have a little bit of reflection on where the industry is. And the nice thing about coming to the school and studying is not only the value that we as instructors can bring. As Alana mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of instructors that are currently in the industry, so they're able to bring that perspective of what's going on right now. But also all of your colleagues, all your cohort that you will be interacting with from around the world, bringing their perspectives and talking about what's been happening in their countries, how their countries have adapted and that sort of thing. And so this opportunity to study allows the students to really discuss and explore some of these opportunities, to skill up, to be prepared when the industry does come back and comes back with a vengeance, that they've got those new skills to step into those opportunities that Geoff mentioned. So
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, because the why study now, I mean, I'm teaching a course right now online with students around the world, and the graduate course for the MA program, and we are dealing in real time with what's happening in the industry. And there's an amazing amount of of literature that's being kind of quickly published. You can actually go to a website called Tourism Transformed, and you'll find free access to various academic publications, and maybe one of the team could post that up there. And so for why study now, as Eugene was saying, like the pre-COVID, we have all this research, and it's almost like that's the past, that there's almost an irrelevance to a good chunk of that, and some of it needs to be adapted. So we are actually just this week launching research funding for students to dive into various issues that we're dealing with right now. And we suspect that there's going to be more like that. There's going to be more need for research and application of that research in real time. So the why study now, as we're working through this transition period, there's certain, it's just a really, it's almost that hinge between a tourism of a few months ago to a new form of tourism. And there's a set of skills that we can look at getting, and there's a timeliness to taking your graduate studies now. And I think this just weaves into the third one. And if I could maybe start with that, around the skills necessary to adapt as the industry changes. You know, we often look at the 4 C's, right? The 4 C's are the standard chunk of information that we need to have, the skills we need to have. So that's around critical thinking, collaboration, so working in teams, communication, so the ability to communicate in different forms, writing, speaking, digitally, and then finally creativity. And creativity really ties with innovation, and innovation ties with new ideas and new opportunities to do business and to respond to this issue, both economically as well as societally, environmentally, culturally. So those are the 4 C's that we have embedded within our program. But as you'll see as we go into the presentation, we're actually adapting our program to look at the other kinds of skills that we need to look at in tourism that maybe we haven't looked at before, and now we need to. So we'll get to that in a moment. We're going to talk about our new specializations. But certainly sustainability is becoming, it's always been there in our program, but is becoming more and more to the fore. And we're getting deeper into how we understand sustainability. Do you want to add?
Well, and remembering that sustainability, quite often people might focus just on the environmental or the ecological aspects of sustainability, but really it's not just the environment, but it's also the economics and the community, the social aspects of sustainability that are so important, that, you know, kind of touches back to what we were originally talking about, that social license of communities wanting to have tourism and being willing to have it, and making sure that the benefits are going back to the community where this tourism is occurring, tourism and hospitality is occurring. So the other thing to very quickly touch on is that in addition to those skills like the 4 C's that Geoff was just mentioning, is of course we cover all of the other sorts of business skills and social science skills as well. So taking a look at things like human resources and finance and marketing and all of those business skills, but adapting them and presenting the sort of tourism and hospitality lens to all of those aspects. So, you know, giving you the ability to manage businesses and manage industry and things like that, to set up your own opportunities. So it's really that combination of the soft and the hard skills that everyone learns. And as I mentioned before, because we have such a multicultural cohort, you're learning to communicate, you're learning to collaborate with people from around the world with a variety of different backgrounds, and getting different views from all of the students in that sort of cohort model where you're all working together, quite often in group projects. So really learning how to work with all of the different people's skills and talents and things like that. So
And I think one of the things with skills necessary to adapt in the future, I mean, there's a few things that we could think about in addition to what Eugene was suggesting. And at Royal Roads, what we've done is we've created a learning, teaching, and research model, which you know, we are more focused on pedagogy in our model than other institutions are, quite frankly. And there is a requirement that we engage students in a highly effective manner because we're working so often online. So we've really put our thought into two broad areas, I would say, is the capacity for students to be able to adapt. So as life goes on and as things become more uncertain and complex and ambiguous, we need to have the ability within us to adapt. So that would be in terms of jobs and also spiritually, mentally. And I think one thing I find with students coming out of the master's program is that they feel confident. They feel more confident in their capacity. So the capacity to adapt. And the other element to that is the capacity to absorb. And by absorb, I mean absorb information. There is so much information that is available to us, and it can be overwhelming. So how do we efficiently, effectively gather information so that we are able to make the right decisions and to basically have that capacity? And you have to build it. And it's a skill in itself. And so that's part of what we try to do in the program is to really get students involved with all the knowledge that's out there, to be able to work with it, to be able to assess it, evaluate, synthesize, and then make the best decisions, be it for yourself, for the community, for your organization. So I would say going to the fourth one around what should tourism and hospitality professionals focus on until the rebound, I guess I would think that focus is on, two things would be survival. And survival is that day-to-day, how do I set up my operation? And I'm sure a lot of you that are in the industry right now are thinking those things through. In the medium term, I think it is on what are the skill sets needed to go forward if this is the new normal where we're going to have these interruptions. So what business models do we have to look at? What additional skill sets and research do we need to do? And that's why we think it's really timely for people to do this kind of education. We are seeing it across the industry. There's workshops and webinars, and there's all these efforts for people to learn more. And those are all great. Formal learning is always the best mode when an economy or when society is going through some kind of dip. We see that, right? It's almost you go into your corner, you build your information, you build your capacity, and then you step into the ring again. So that's what we're advocating. So we're doing this in a number of different ways. And through our research, engaging people through the forum, through our, this kind of webinar, but also within the MA program and the graduate certificate. Eugene?
I just wanted to address one of the questions that Mohit asked about when do you guys see the industry coming back to how it was pre-COVID? And I guess personally, it depends on what you mean by coming back. I don't know that it will ever be exactly the same because it never is exactly the same to how it is pre any one of these events. When will it come back to being fairly busy and things like that? Barring any additional, second waves, and if things continue on with the development of vaccines and things like that, next summer there'll definitely be a bounce back, but they're expecting probably about 2 to 3 years before things fully get back to close to where they were. But again, I wouldn't expect things to be exactly the same necessarily ever again. People will do things differently, hopefully do things better differently. But that's just kind of my own personal thoughts. What do you think, Geoff?
Well, I agree with you. I think the thing is that pre-COVID, the tourism industry worldwide was outgrowing the expectation. So the World Tourism Organization was saying 3.5% compound annual growth, and that was huge. And we were outstripping that. I think we were closing in on 5%. So the question of going back, it's like, well, yeah, that was growth that we just, was crazy and perhaps unsustainable. And we were certainly, if this was a year ago, the conversation we'd be having would be, of course, around over tourism. And that language has essentially been set aside. Certainly it could be there again. But I think the thing is that even, I'm booking a local trip here outside the city of Victoria because we're allowed to based on local protocols. And the place we're going to is nearly booked for August. So that's that whole thing of there's a desire to travel. Those people that are more willing to take the risk or can take that risk of, say, hopping on a flight when that opportunity arises will do so. And other people may have their own innate fear to do that. So there's two things happening is fear, but also regulation. So it's always difficult to predict. But of course, what we'll see is regions of the world that will open up first. We may see corridors being created. Of course, Canada has a corridor with Europe, whereas the United States doesn't have that corridor. So that air corridor. So when the time comes, then maybe we will have that opportunity. Certain other parts of the world may not be open for quite some time. So global tourism is one thing. Regional kind of interregional, I think we'll see rise even in the next year or so. I think we'll see some things happen, but it will take time. Certain kinds of tourism, though, may take even longer, right? So if we divide it up, the whole thing of a business conference where you're bringing people in from around the world, like the World Travel Mart, those kinds of things may be very difficult to see in their normal state. We saw Disney open the other week to a lot of criticism. They opened it in Florida. They had opened over in Hong Kong previously. And so we'll see how that unfolds. But amusement parks may have, their own risks. Of course, cruise ships have their own risks. So different sectors will have difficulty. However, things like nature-based tourism may see a faster rebound, rural settings, right? So those areas where people can get away from others and be safely isolated are things that I think people will be attracted to. So that's an opportunity, because rural areas and tourism in rural areas is something that isn't as well developed. So anyway, Alana, are we okay for time? Should we be moving on?
Probably. I think we might have to move on, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you can keep your questions coming as they come up, and we will do a Q&A. Yeah. But I just want to say, thank you so much. This was a great way to start the presentation. You guys addressed a lot of the questions that I have. So thanks for that. But I will carry on. We'll get into the program information now.
So do you want us to jump in on this? I guess we are. Okay, go over to you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I guess the other thing that we wanted to very quickly touch on is the fact that, yes, we are online at the moment with all of our courses. That's very much a provincial and potentially a national decision based on the best medical advice and everything like that. But for all of you that, may not have experience with online learning and things like that, we've been doing this for, 25 years or more. And so we've got a lot of experience. We go far beyond just trying to, move that, what would have been a classroom activity online. We've got such a range of opportunities supported by a full department that helps us with this. So the range of possible online activities is incredible through the university. And it's touching on a variety of ways that people learn, and really different ways to get you engaged and enthused about the information. And then when we bring you onto the campus, we still continue to use many of these different ways of engaging you, so that the learning does continue on in a variety of ways, understanding that people learn in quite a range of different ways. And so we try to touch on all the different ways that people learn and get engaged into the material.
Should we go to the next slide? There we are. So we have a range of folks that are teaching. We have a mix of core faculties, people such as Eugene and myself, and Rebecca Wilson-Ma, Dr. Rebecca Wilson-Ma, Dr. Brian White, Moira McDonald, who's finishing her doctorate right now. So as we are the core faculty, we are here full-time doing research, as well as teaching and supervising students in their thesis work and their research. And we also have the benefit of drawing on what we call associate faculty who are working in the industry. So we're able to blend the academic side, what we might say is traditional, with those people that are working in the industry right now. So looking across some of the faces, this isn't our entire team, but some of the faces here, we've got Steve Kleinschmidt, who was a former vice president for Marco Polo Hotels based out of Hong Kong. And then we will have someone like Catherine Evans, who's a owner-operator of an outbound tour company. So that's lovely for us to draw on that wonderful blend of applied and practical work. And I should say that as core faculty, we've all had our time in the tourism sector in different ways. And that we feel is really important to help us make sure that our research is applied. And by applied, there's we can maybe talk about pure academics, which we do as well. It's woven in there. It's the theory and concepts that we need to work with. But we're trying to solve problems that communities and organizations are dealing with. And we work with our students to do that. So right now, for example, we received Marriott Hotels provided funding for us to provide some research on essentially how the West Coast is going to open up for tourism in the future with an organization called the BC Wilderness Tourism Association. So various opportunities come from around the world for us, and we dive in and we tackle these. And working with the core and associate faculty we have, we're able to really provide a rich array of backgrounds, from hospitality, food and beverage, events and conferences, heritage culture, as well as events, conferences, festivals, a range of different sectors cross into our world. Next, should we go to the next slide?
Yep.
I just want you guys to speak just for a moment what your background is in the tourism industry.
Okay. You want to go first, Eugene?
Sure. Well, I guess, and not wanting to get too deep, but I actually grew up right next to a summer resort. So I spent all of my formative years, right from when I was 15 till 24, running a store at a summer resort. But after that, I worked for Parks Canada, so our National Parks Service, for several years, doing research on what people were doing, social science research, things like that. Went from there to working for the Canadian Tourism Commission, so what's now called Destination Canada, the national Canadian promoter of tourism to Canada, as the chief analyst. So taking a look at who's coming to Canada and working on all sorts of different marketing and research projects for all of the Destination Canada stuff. Had some fun with a few different projects. One of the things worked on was this thing called Explorer Quotient, and the changeover in all of the branding. So, and then from there, off to Australia for a bit, and now living here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. Geoff?
Thanks, Eugene. I've been involved with tourism and hospitality for about 30 years. I've had my own small business related to a tour company, essentially, and but most of my time has been with government organizations, either working in the education field or in areas such as sustainability. I've worked in Malaysia, Vietnam, France, and across Canada in different capacities. My real kind of research interests, I have the two areas. One is sustainability. So definitely in an important area where we think about communities and some of the issues we've talked about already. But the other area is heritage. I do a lot of work around particularly war heritage. So that would be battlefields and memorials around the world, which we often refer to as dark tourism or thanatourism. But of course, they are also significant attractions in their own way. And tourism has to be dealt with differently at those sites. So places like Normandy in France, over 3.5 million visitors. So I do a lot of film work, actually, and there's a website, warheritage.royalroads.ca, that has a number of the films that I've produced. And they're about sites of memory, so we deal with landscapes and how people tell stories. So that's the kind of work I've done. And in the past, it's been around poverty alleviation, working in communities to help build a better form of tourism. So, and I love to teach. I love being with students, and I find it inspiring to work with so many people that are looking to make a change, and they see tourism as that route. So our next slide. Okay, here we go into the program. Shall I go, Brian?
Yeah,
sorry, Eugene?
Yeah, go for it.
So program options, we're going to speak to the on-campus program, which is the MA in Tourism Management, of course. And then we have a blended, which is online with residency. So the on-campus is, right now it's online, but normally it's on campus. And there's a few courses that we do online to allow students to have maximum choice. And we also have the graduate certificate. And I saw there was a question earlier by Billy who was asking about what courses to take. We'll get to that slide a little later on. Should we go to the next slide? Do you want to take this one on, Eugene?
I'll let you. I was just going to answer a few questions in the side.
Oh, okay, good. Okay,
All
great.
Right. So thanks.
So our on-campus MA program, we've moved to 3 annual intakes. This is the on-campus program. May, August, and December. So this allows us to have students basically have a rolling intake over the course of the year. And essentially it takes about 20 months to finish the program. There's within the on-campus program, we have field study components such as an international field study. In previous years, we've gone to London, Munich, Paris to do essentially a week-long field study where students are doing their own research in these places, as well as on Vancouver Island. So we're into rural areas. So we try to do everything from camping to an international trip, so we get the full spectrum of opportunity. And of course, with your internship, you can also do your own travel where you're working somewhere around Canada or overseas in your own, maybe in your own country or a new country. Within the program, we have 3 completion options, which we'll get into in a bit more detail. And this allows students to customize your learning in terms of how much you want research to be a focus. Every completion option has research, of course, but some more than others. So a thesis, for example, is the classic MA model. So you could go that way. So that would be about a third of your program would be focused on your individual research, where we would basically supervise. The major research project is something that might be used to, say, create a business plan or a marketing plan, something significant, but it's worth a little less of its credit value. It's about 25% of the program if you chose that route. And then finally, the capstone is a course which is as a 3 credit value. So just like everything else, it's 3 credits. So whereas thesis is 12, the MRP is 9, this is 3. So this allows you maximum ability to have more electives, which we're going to talk to in a moment. We also have specializations available, which we're going to get to, I think, in the next slide. Should we go to the next one? So here's the blended program, and our next intake for the blended is September 2021. So that has 2 on-campus residencies. We find we get a lot of people from across Canada that like this choice because it allows them to continue to work. And we basically can run it over about a 26-month period. Same completion options apply. There's no kind of requirement for an overseas trip, but you can certainly take it as an elective if you wanted to come overseas with us. And when you're here on campus for they're 1-week residencies, we do local activities and engage in tourism, because if you're not having fun in this kind of program, there's an issue. So we like to make sure that we're experiencing tourism so we can understand it better, in addition to the expertise that we have in the room. And that's something else to mention, is there's such a lovely variety of expertise that we have. And as an adult education focused institution, we need to draw on that expertise. So that's a really powerful element of our program. Next slide. Here's the breakdown of the electives. We've got a few slides here of kind of the detail of the MA program. And for those interested in the graduate certificate, which is actually coming up, the intake is coming up in August, this August. So if you're interested in taking the on-campus GC, or there are some options as a distance graduate certificate, where you can just take distance courses if you wanted to get your graduate certificate. So we have core courses. These are the courses that are required. Each course is 3 credits. If you're interested in that kind of information, we have 36 credits in our program. So 18 credits are common. So 50% of the program is core. And you can see by looking at the list of global tourism, leadership, transforming destinations, marketing, the tourism marketing course there, strategic planning, methodology. They're your classic core business and social science skill set. People are coming in with a fair amount of experience. Maybe they have, typically they have an undergraduate degree, but they may have a diploma. So we're trying to provide something that people can access and that takes them to that next level. So this is a great range of skills. Some of these courses are more aimed at you. So for example, leadership is about developing you as a leader, whereas a global tourism course is focused on issues and trends that we're dealing with globally. And then of course, marketing, planning, and transforming destinations looks at destination development and the role of every organization, destination marketing organization, as well as local businesses, municipality, government, etc., in creating destinations. So that's what we're doing in the core. Elective-wise, we have 6 that we offer within our school, and then there's a range across the university that you can take. So here we have sustainability, ethics, we have a hospitality course, we have social entrepreneurship, a finance piece for those people that are, say, maybe they haven't taken a course in finance before, but of course there's other options. And then finally, an internship. So some people would say, well, I've got 30 years experience. Why would I take an internship? Well, sometimes people actually, in addition to their job, will say, yeah, I want to try something new. I saw there was a question earlier about someone who was in the airline business, I saw earlier, and what if they should come into this kind of program. And I would say yes. I would say that there's so much flexibility for you to decide your next path. An MA really opens doors that weren't there otherwise. They could be about consulting. They could be with working within an existing organization. It could be about creating your own organization. So, so an internship basically allows you to play in, say, a research-based consulting project. We see those more and more. Or it could be that you're really interested in breaking into resorts and you want to try a new area. So people use that internship in a range of different ways. So as I mentioned, there's a range of other electives available. Sometimes we have actually a student has come to us and said, I've seen this really amazing course at an Australian university. It's a graduate level course. Can I have approval to take that? And of course, those are the kinds of things that we look forward to helping students to assess that course and then use that as a course we can transfer in. So we have a great deal of flexibility. Here's the completion options I mentioned earlier. We've got, you can see the value by credit. And what is also on this particular slide, it shows the number of additional electives you can take based on your choice. So thesis is 2, major research project is 3, and then finally a capstone gives you 5 elective courses to choose that you can pull into your program. And so one of the things we often say to students is, okay, so what do you want to do? What do you want to have a specialization in, or what do you want to have expertise? And some people say, well, I just like the general idea. I want to have a broad education and take a range of electives and just experiment. And that's great. And then sometimes people say, I am specifically interested in organizational behavior and stuff to do with technology. Or they'll say, I'm really curious about, building my competency in sustainability. Okay. So, this is where this model is really good to allow you to customize your learning. You're customizing it through the research you choose, as well as the electives you pick. I'm going to go to the next slide. So here's some examples of research. This is student research. And you can see a range of different topics, and the list could go on and on. I mean, it always becomes a bit of a debate amongst the faculty. It's like, well, which one should we highlight? Because there's so many great papers that we've seen over the years. Some have gone on to be published. Some have gone on to be presented at conferences. And the spectrum is amazing. So we've had mentioned earlier, Kathy McRae. She's one of our associate faculty now. She is with the Great Grizzly Bear Viewing Association here in British Columbia. Upper left, she did a whole piece on ending the trophy hunt here in the province, which was a big issue in the past. But we also had someone who did a piece on tourism to do with literary events, right? So Charles Dickens or Game of Thrones or comics, and basically looking at that whole sector as kind of a subset of tourism. We've got stuff to do with entrepreneurship and outcomes of pursuing a passion-driven career and the lifestyle it enables. And I think that goes to the heart of why a lot of people pick tourism and pick this program, is the flexibility it offers in terms of where you live, as well as the kind of areas that you can go into. And that's what this program really provides, that jumping off point. Our average age we see is, average, say, 38 in the blended program, which is the one that's online. On campus is a little younger, usually about 30. But generally what we're seeing is a mix of students. Some are, just late 20s, they're running into their, their career. They're new to things in a way. Maybe they have, say, 5 years in the experience, or 2 years of industry experience. And then we'll see people that may have, say, 20 years experience or 25 years, and they're looking to shift gears. We've had executives come into the program. We've also seen people that are career changers, that are looking at tourism and saying, this is what really is passionate for me. And I think that's also a key marker in the tourism program, is people are passionate about it. Let's say they're passionate about food tourism or heritage, or basically taking people out on whale watching boats, or they like to go overseas on a bus tour, or whatever it is. So it's so that's reflected in people's research. Did you want to jump in here, Eugene?
Yeah, just very quickly to talk about sort of the impact that some of this research has had also on the students. We had one student who did his research on mountain bike tourism and turned that into consulting work. And he's a full-time consultant now on tourism and hospitality. That one message there, or the one title there about analysis of tourism disaster management on Vancouver Island, Jen Houtby Ferguson, and she's actually got another presentation that's available online, I think through Alana. But she now works part-time with Red Cross, and she's been actually going in various locations across Canada and even in various other countries, working on disaster management and disaster management plans and things like that. So we really see, not only does this research have impacts on the broader community and sustainability and everything like that, but we've also seen a lot of students take their research and really use that as a way to move into areas or create real niches and interests for themselves for their future. Mm-hmm. So it's been really exciting for us to watch that process and to see where students go immediately after and in the years after they're with us. So thanks.
Maybe we'll go to the next slide here. And I see a question there that's aimed at Eugene about elaborating on a few examples where MATM students can fit into the sustainable part of the industry. And maybe we can touch on that a bit here. So we're going to just, for the first time, introduce our specializations. And so there should be a great drum roll here. Because this is a big journey for us. So we define a specialization as again, there's choice within the specialization. You can choose to have your thesis or the MRP as your research component within your specialization. But you take 2 courses that allow you to focus in and essentially to have this recognized on your transcript. So you have an MATM in, and then you indicate what that is. So the MATMs that we're actually launching this January are social entrepreneurship and disaster and emergency management. So social entrepreneurship we've been delivering for quite some time as a course, and really entrepreneurship in the future needs to take into account sustainability, and we look at social entrepreneurship as a way to do that. So as a first step, when we talk about sustainability and focusing on a sustainable part of the industry, the whole industry needs to move that way. So our programs, in addition to having it in the core, we're looking to have it so we're more specific as to what we're doing. And as a university, we're very committed to sustainability. So entrepreneurial sustainability. So we've got that as a specialization. The other one is disaster and emergency management, which on the spectrum of sustainability is kind of, in the world of crisis, right? Drought, fires, pandemics, just a range of issues related to climate change that could precipitate a challenge for a community. And we're finding that tourism organizations are often on the forefront of disaster and emergency management. They're evacuating, they're providing support. Like we've seen all through COVID, hotels have been sometimes in the front line of the COVID pandemic in terms of housing medical professionals. We've seen this in a number of occasions. So disaster emergency management, you would take 2 courses through our disaster emergency management program, and then you would come back into our thesis and you would basically tie that to tourism. So we have other specializations that are coming down the road. We have one in human security. Human security is essentially when we look at a community or this is keep it from a community perspective, thinking about ways that we keep people safe. And you kind of think, well, what's that got to do with tourism? Well, as we're running our businesses in communities, we can either enable the community to be safe and to keep people safe, or there can be other issues that come up. So often we can look to, say, sex tourism, for example, or bad human resource practices, harassment, racism. We can deal with issues of what we call economic leakage, where the benefits of tourism are leaving the community. We see with over-tourism, for example, that whole conflict between the community and the tourist. So when we talk about human security, we're weaving in the whole world of peace building. And so we often see this as a growing issue for tourism. So this one is really quite a different one. And we draw on our human security and peace building graduate program for their courses. We're also going for those people that are coming to us from colleges. We get a number of college instructors. They can do a specialization in higher education or learning and technology. And so those are the 5 areas that we're working on right now for our specializations that we have approval for. And of course we have the general, right? So if you're saying, well, those are all look interesting, but not for me, that's fine. You can still access these courses if there's availability. They are popular courses. So if you're not using it as your specialization, then you're basically the next line of getting to choose those particular courses. Anything you want to add, Eugene?
No, that's good. Thanks, Geoff.
Okay. So graduate certificate is the graduate certificate was designed to allow students to get a taste of the master's program and then transfer in if they wished. So you can take any 3 courses within the School of Tourism and Hospitality Management, except for the internship and the thesis. I don't know if you'd want to spend time doing your thesis when you're doing your graduate certificate, but so, you could take some of the core courses, you could take some of those elective options. And in addition to laddering into the MATM, there's the Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies, which is similar in the sense that it gives a lot of options for you to take. And also into the MBA. So, so that's, are we sure about that one? Just want to make sure that we're not leaving.
Yeah, it's brand new. All of the grad certificates now ladder into the MBA.
Okay, that's right. That's right. They do, yeah. Okay, I think that's, so we have a August or December intake for the graduate certificate.
All right. Well, thanks.
Over to you, Alana.
I'm going to, I recognize we're already a few minutes over. So as I said in the chat box, if you need to pop off, then we will be sending out the recording link and you can watch the end a little bit later. But if you do have questions, now is a great time. I am going to start going through the application process, but both Eugene and Geoff are going to watch out for the questions. They might answer them in the chat box, or we might wait till the final slide. And then when we get to the final slide, we'll also verbally answer some questions as well. So in terms of standard admissions, we're looking for the completion of a 4-year or comparable undergraduate degree in a related field. I will note, and I'll ask both Eugene and Geoff to pop in if you feel compelled, but this can look like a lot of different things. I'm sure you've had people from a variety of different undergraduate backgrounds come through this program. Did you want to make a note on that?
Sorry, you caught me typing to one of the students there. I was responding to the question about can I do this while I'm working?
Yes.
Sorry. Is that what you want me to speak to?
No, I was just saying that it says here with the with the undergraduate degree from a related field, but I was just saying that can be very broad. I'm sure you guys have had people come in with all sorts of undergraduate degrees come into the MATM.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's more the experience part, the second point.
Mhm.
So, and it's quite interesting when we do have people come in with a variety of different backgrounds. Like we've had people from communications, from you know, professional media, all sorts of marketing, you know, even biology and other backgrounds coming in. Sometimes, as Geoff was saying earlier, it's a career change, and sometimes it's, you know, just a continuation of an area that they're already been working in for a while. So yeah, quite a range.
Thanks for that. And we are looking for the standard admissions, a GPA of a B, but as mentioned below, you can still come through the standard admissions with a lower GPA. You just may be required to take the academic writing and critical thinking course offered through our professional and continuing studies. And I will say that if you've been outside of academia for a long time, a lot of people really feel that they did a good investment by doing this course first, because it gets you back into the academic way of writing with APA. Of course, it's not intuitive if you haven't been writing it for a number of years. That's just something to consider. And if you're coming through flexible admissions, but it's about I believe it's a 6-week course, and there's lots of intakes. So you can click that live link if you are curious about that course. And as Eugene mentioned, there is a requirement for at least 2 years of full-time work experience within a tourism or hospitality related industry. So again, that can look like a lot of different things. And then for flexible admissions, I mentioned this in the beginning, but to give you a sense of what that looks like with this program. So applicants with no post-secondary education would normally be required for at least 7 years of progressive work experience, with 3 years, which would be in a leadership role. And then applicants who have some sort of post-secondary, so perhaps you have a diploma or something of that nature, will be adjudicated on a case-by-case basis, with greater emphasis placed on the quality and years of work experience. So I would say when you're coming through flexible admissions, have conversations with our enrollment team. Enrollment is really, they know this process very, very well, and they'll really be able to support in this process. So connect you with the faculty from the School of Tourism and Hospitality if you have questions. But it is a more involved process just in terms of having those conversations, because I think for some people, it feels a little scary to come through flexible if you don't have that academic background. But I will say that a lot of people do come through flexible admissions. I'm not 100% sure with the MATM, but I know in many of our other programs, people do. Do you guys have many people come through the flexible admissions background? Yes.
There's always a few that come through that have the flexible admissions, and yeah, there's, because we've got people that have lots of experience sometimes, but they may not have the education, like the official education or things like that, or maybe in different areas. So so there's always a few in every group.
And it's always great when there's a pre-master's program. I think you've mentioned that is really useful for people to take, just so that they're able to hit that ground running. And yeah, we've seen some great transitions from through the program of people that have used prior learning assessment to come in.
Thanks for that. So once you're ready to apply, there is an online application fee of $123.81. And once you pay that, you can start submitting your documents. So your official transcripts, if you haven't seen them in a while, get one sent to yourself and one to us. We can accept them if they've been open, so just keep that in mind. And then your detailed resume is not a typical CV. This is generally a multi-page document that outlines all of your work experience, volunteer experience, non-credential education, basically everything that you think that we will find relevant to you getting into this program. This is specifically important if you're coming in through flexible admissions. You really want to make a case for yourself. And then as well with the personal statement. So this is actually, I love this exercise. I've done a number of them now, but it's really about outlining why you want to come into the program, what you're hoping to get out of it, what you're going to be bringing to the learning community here. There's some guiding questions on the website that can help with that, but do keep in mind that the program head does read these, so definitely put some effort in behind them, because this is going to impact whether or not you are admitted into the program. And then the 2 letters of reference. So in a perfect world, it would be 1 academic reference and 1 professional, but we recognize people maybe don't have connections inside academia anymore, specifically if you're coming through flexible admissions. So we will accept 2 professional. They just need to come through a professional letterhead or professional email. With that, few more details. So the key dates for the on-campus program. So we have a few coming up right now. So we have a start date for the on-campus of December 1st, and then the application deadline right now is December 1st, and then the application deadline is September 1st, and then the next one is the program start date is May the 10th, and then the deadline for the application is February the 10th. For the blended program, as mentioned, so the next intake is September 2021, and the application deadline is June the 6th. Something to keep in mind if you are wanting to get started sooner rather than later, you could start with the grad certificate potentially, and that is starting a bit sooner. So we do have an intake coming up on November the 2nd, and the current application deadline is August the 2nd. So that's also a way to start your studies, and then you could transfer those credits in. Am I correct in saying that people can do that for the blended program?
Yes.
I see some nods. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, and for financial aid, so of course we recognize financial planning is an important component for planning for education. So we do have a financial aids office. So if you're looking for bursaries, they're great people to connect with. I have a live link here to their website, and as well as their email and their phone number. Also, if you're looking at tuition schedules, this is something that's worthwhile to explore. It can kind of help you plan and wrap your head around how that's going to work for you. So definitely get in touch with those folks. And our enrollment services. So as you see, Tracy has been on the background there, piping in some links, and as well as now has been on the background as well. So if you want to reach out to either of them, if you have any questions about your application, they're also great people to connect with. If you want to talk to somebody in the faculty, they can get you in connection with them if you're thinking about a specific research area. So make sure to connect with them. And I think that brings us to the end, but I imagine there's some questions that need to be answered, or I'm not sure if all of them have been answered in the chat box, but I'll let Eugene and Geoff make any comments there or answer any questions that need answering.
I think we've been trying to answer them along the way. Very quickly about the capstone course or the capstone option, actually Geoff is working on right now. So that particular course, so if you've got any questions, no, it's not on the official website yet, because I think it's still, Geoff is still working on it and wanting to make sure that it, meets all the needs of the students and the academic and pedagogical elements. So, but I don't know if you wanted to touch on any further on that capstone course.
Yes, well, it is, we're offering it for the first time in September. And so the completion options are something new for the program. Because we're just trying to ensure that students are taking the things that they want to focus on. And so the capstone is an effort to get students to essentially do some research on the primary research side. So secondary research would be dealing with the literature, and then the primary research is surveys, that kind of thing. We're working within a 3-credit course. So we're going to be essentially analyzing data and coming up with recommendations. So you'll be given raw data and then you can work with it. So that allows us to move quickly through the 12-week course. There's a literature review. All of these will be kind of opportunities. There's 3 assignments, essentially. There'll be opportunities for you to focus on areas that are really relevant to you. So we get students that are diving into, I'm sure that the kind of the post-COVID recovery will be a big theme, as it is right now in the course I'm teaching. And people are looking at what opportunities will there be, what does it mean in terms of career? How do I best prepare myself? All those kinds of questions are at play right now. And then other people are maybe looking at a feasibility for an idea that they have. Maybe it's a new product or experience. Maybe it's something to do with technology and how to use technology towards some content marketing element. So the range is quite wide. So often in courses, you're going to find that we design a a general description, and then you're able to drop in your own area of interest. So anyway, I know we're late, so I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Well, I think we've addressed all the questions either aloud or in the chat box, but if you do have any questions that come up later, feel free to email us and we'll definitely be answering those. I know a number of people are going to be connecting with our enrollment team afterwards, but I just want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank Eugene and Geoff for all the really valuable information that they offered, and everybody else on the back end who is supporting the webinar. So I hope everyone has a great day, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much, everyone.
See you later. See you soon. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.